debate. Reprise de débat. The honourable member for Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Canada and Ukraine share a special relationship, and I will be sharing my time with the member from Calgary-Nose Hill. The Ukrainian diaspora in Canada is the largest outside Ukraine, with over 1.3 million Canadians claiming some connection to Ukraine. Russia began its invasion of Ukraine in 2014, including the illegal annexation of Crimea on March 21st, 2014, 3 years tomorrow. Estimates from different sources place this combined military-civilian casualty rate at close to 50,000. Let there be no misunderstanding, the conflict is ongoing and it can only go from bad to worse. In April of 2015, Prime Minister Harper, on behalf of Canada, responded to the deteriorating situation by announcing Canada would deploy approximately 200 Canadian Armed Forces personnel to Ukraine until March 31st, 2017. For nearly 2 years, Canadian troops have been providing training in explosive ordnance disposal, flight safety, logistics system modernization, military policing, and medical training. After repeated delays and requests from Ukraine's president, Canada has finally extended the mission to Ukraine until March 2019. As far as Canada's participation is concerned with this mission, my first concern has been and always will be for our Canadian soldiers and their families. This is a hot zone. Even before the announcement that Canada was extending the Ukraine mission, Petawawa was already preparing for summer deployment. On March 9th, the Conservative Party, after months of giving the Prime Minister the opportunity to do the right thing, brought to the attention of Canadians the most recent example of how the Liberal Party devalues the dangers inherent in missions like the one we're debating today. The decision to claw back the danger pay of soldiers on the front line in the war against international terrorism has soldiers asking me if their pay will be cut or by not receiving the proper recognition of being in a hot zone. Soldiers remember being sent to Afghanistan without the proper uniforms. Soldiers remember their comrades from the conflict in Afghanistan who were killed or injured by a roadside bomb because the Liberal Party played politics with air support when it cancelled the helicopter contract. In fact, history repeats itself with the same type of politics being played with the fighter jet replacement. Without the proper strategic airlift to get soldiers off the roads, lives were needlessly sacrificed. Soldiers are asking what else the Liberals will take away besides danger pay. What happens when the injured soldier, when he comes home? What happens to the injured soldier? I brought this to the floor of the House of the case of Warrant Officer Roger Perot. His treatment has been nothing short of scandalous. What about the Roger Perots and other soldiers like whom are waiting to receive the critical injury benefits they so deserve? To the soldiers and veterans who are watching this debate, I want you to know I have your back. As a veteran Conservative member of the Standing Committee on National Defence, I'm pleased to confirm I've been pushing this government through the Defence Committee to accept the recommendations of the Canadian Forces Military Ombudsman Gary Walburn in the report presented last fall to the Minister of National Defence, simplifying the service delivery model for medically releasing members of the Canadian Armed Forces. Specifically, soldiers need to know that if they are injured and no longer meet the universality of service requirement, the support is there. Of the many problems that I'm called on to intervene in regarding service in Canadian Armed Forces, the issues surrounding medical release are the most frustrating both to the releasing soldiers and their families. The need to provide the soldier a seamless transition has become an issue of crisis proportion since then PM Chrétien first committed Canada to the mission in Afghanistan. So it's time to move on and do what's right. The first reform that must take place is to ensure no currently serving member of the Canadian Armed Forces is medically released without all services and benefits in place. Each year, approximately 1,500 members of the Canadian Armed Forces are released due to illness or injury, of which about 600 are directly related to military service. Once released from the Canadian Armed Forces, the soldier becomes the responsibility of Veterans Affairs Canada. Ill and injured members must prove to Veterans Affairs Canada their illness or injury was attributed or aggravated by their military service. And while the Canadian Armed Forces have all the medical and personnel information needed to support the claim, the information systems between the departments are completely independent of one another. Medically releasing soldiers are required to obtain medical and service documents from the Department of National Defence and then plead their case to the Veterans Affairs. So once again, I'm calling upon the government to take and implement the recommendations given in the report from the military ombudsman.
Resuming, questions and comments? Questions et commentaires? The honourable member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank my colleague from Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke, the Vice Chair of the National Defence Committee. I thank her for her passion and her support for the Canadian Armed Forces. She has always fought to ensure that they are well represented at committee and in this House, and that their care and their needs and their benefits are first and foremost at the forefront of our debates here, as well as making sure that they get the proper equipment and kit to do the job that they're so often called upon to do. Now, in the situation in Ukraine, we do have over 200 members of Canadian Armed Forces. They're doing training with Ukrainian military members. They are somewhat removed from harm's way, but at the same time, the situation over there is fluid. Russia has a very advanced military and could move over a lot of territory very quickly. So I'd ask the member if she wants to talk about the concern that she has about danger pay, about tax benefits, and things that are provided to those of those in the armed forces, and in support of the military families back home who are dealing with long times of separation from their loved ones who are deployed, and how that should be implemented for Operation UNIFIER and Operation Reassurance with our troops going to Latvia.
The honourable member for Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke.
It's really important to have that seamless transition so that when the military person is injured, be it in training at home or helping training overseas, that they know that if something happens to them, that they will be taken care of. And if they cannot meet the universality of service, that they will have the proper pension in place without having to fight another fight for it. But my colleague was mentioning earlier what is needed over there. And 2014, in June, there was a Parliamentary Association of the NATO Assembly, and we were in Vilnius, and we had actually soldiers from the front who were parliamentarians. Ole was leading the delegation. He was on crutches because he had been injured. And I still have his list today, and it sounds like he's still asking for more of the same. It says they don't need advice. What they need are the helmets. They need the body armor. Our troops have the wonderful Pacific safety products, fragmentation, protection vests, but they're using pieces of tin. So I would hope that we provide them with what is needed where we can.
Comments, questions et commentaires. The honourable parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And no one will debate how much everyone in this House respects the women and men of our Canadian Armed Forces, and I'm pleased to see finally we have a Minister of Defence who's willing to work hard to clear up and overcome some of the challenges that women and men in uniform face, given the last 10 years of the previous government's leadership on that file. As it relates to Canada's mission in Ukraine and support for the Ukrainian people, I wonder if the member opposite has any commentary on how important it is that we extend this mission to ensure that the armed forces in Ukraine are receiving the support they need to maintain their sovereignty, security, and stability, and how the support for the Ukrainian people will help enhance their democracy, enhance the rule of law, and security for the people of Ukraine. Thank you.
The honourable member for Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke.
The ongoing support is very important, Madam Speaker. At that Parliamentary Association meeting in Vilnius in 2014, they were commemorating their 25 years of independence, and they unveiled this museum, and it showed different depictions of what they went through when they were fighting for their independence. But unlike history unto itself, they wanted to show solidarity for Ukraine. So for every battle that they went through in their independence, they showed what Ukraine was going through at that time, because it was just a few short months ago when Putin's Russian forces had invaded Crimea. And the stark memory I always have is of their armor, the body armor of the Lithuanians, and then two flat pieces of tin held together by the shoulders with men's pant belts. And that's what they were using for body armor. So continue to support both the material, in training, and of course looking for the lost treasury that was stolen by their former president.
Resuming debate, reprise de débat.